the words. We just can't afford to take an insular approach to this problem. This is a picture that I took out of Nature. It's a little dated. It came out in 2004. It was an article written by David King, who was in the UK Science and Technology Office. Very interesting article. Left side is citation intensity. So really what that is, it's measured as the ratio of citations to all papers to the national GDP. And the x-axis is wealth intensity. So it's really about how much ROI are you getting for your R&D spending. That's what this says. And you will notice a clear trend. India, China, Brazil, Russia, the BRIC countries are at the bottom left corner. What that means is that the scientific impact of these nations is relatively low. There are some odd outliers, Israel being one of them, where even though the wealth intensity is low compared to the United States, you will see the citation intensity to be extremely high. That says a lot about the innovation systems of such countries, and we need to pay a lot of attention to what they've done. So one important aspect of frugal innovation is you've got to be able to source foreign IP for inclusive innovation. We have run into this for many of the projects that we do. Say you're talking about mobile health. There are a lot of sophisticated technologies that you need. Say you wanted to do a non-invasive blood glucose test. You've got to shop around for someone who's already worked on that problem. You cannot assume that you're going to find it here, locally. You need a process by which you can source the world's inventions to solve your problem. So we must find creative ways to incentivize foreign IP holders to license their IP to Indian companies or startups. And we cannot be complacent in our belief that our IP enforcement regime is good. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying we cannot afford to be complacent about it. We have to pay attention to the quality and integrity of that. The big point about IP is a smooth IP licensing regime opens freedom of action to unlock new market value here. It's not about a swords and shields approach. The whole IP dialogue has gotten completely distorted. What you need IP for is to disseminate the world's technology to solve your problem. It's a trade instrument, and we've got to view it as an asset class for that purpose. This is the global technology map. This was actually put together by a well-known professor in the US, Richard Florida, who writes about the creative class. He's actually associated with the Rotman School of Management in Toronto. It maps out, which are the countries that are strong in technology and which are relatively weak. Now, there should be no surprises here. Russia is 28, China 37, Brazil 48, India 49. Now, if we want to leverage technology to tackle our inclusive problems, this chart also shows that we cannot rely on our own capacities alone. I won't say much about international patent filings because
I think it's
already been covered. So I'm going to skip this. We also need to strengthen our indigenous IP creation capability. And one way to do that is we must improve the research capacity of our universities in priority areas. Things like healthcare, energy, media access, those kinds of things. Our industry academic linkages are unwieldy. They must improve. And also our management schools must strengthen their agendas on industrial scale technological innovation, not just on marketing and distribution of consumer products. I'm going to skip this foil. I also want to close on this. We must foster innovation and entrepreneurship based on IP. That is, we must make it more rewarding to take the risk of innovation than to copy and sell. That's a policy problem. We need to provide incentives to increase private sector R&D investment. We cannot rely on all investment dollars from outside to fund our R&D needs. IP is not just about patents. It's really about fostering creations of the mind. As a starting point, we must aggressively roll out libraries in India, everywhere, as part of a private-public partnership model. This is one thing that this country desperately needs. Lots of libraries everywhere, available to all. And finally, risk capital in India is more costly due to increased governance risks, enforcing contracts, time to exit the business, lack of infrastructure. Governance matters a lot to create an innovation ecosystem from which you can extract economic value. We've got to pay attention to those things as well. So with that, I will close. Thank you.
Thank you. Couple of minutes of questions, comments, anything? Or are you ready for lunch? Good, then let's go for lunch. Thank you. Thank you all the speakers.
Wise choice. That was really functional. It's 2 o'clock, they're hungry. No more food for thought. It was interesting.
Just before lunch. So it's good that we are connecting well. There's been good chemistry. And one proposal I have for everyone to think about is to make this a regular yearly event. Do it on a bigger scale next year, because this year room turned out to be smaller, at least for the first session and second session. And as usual, after that sort of, things begin to slow down a little bit. But we could go beyond just government leaders and also invite NGO leaders, business leaders, and make this really a platform for discussions on innovations. So that's one idea. Maybe we can talk a little bit about it. How about just spending 5-10 minutes on it? Anyone has any input? No? Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Gabriele Fioni from France. I think it's an excellent idea. The only question I have, when we make an open platform for discussion, I think would be of extremely useful to have both components of innovation. It means research, fundamental research, and obviously industry.
Just to start with an idea, for this new platform, new collaboration. In Mexico, my country is semi-desertic, so we have different species, let me say, different varieties of plants, and we have a very, very good agricultural laboratories, and for instance, for maize, for corn, for wheat, we have a special plant because they have to resist low water, they have to resist aluminum, different salt. Then this kind of, they could be free for countries like India, and maybe we can share this kind of varieties, new things that could be very useful for you, and perhaps also some countries like your country could also share some of the varieties and some of the food, the vegetables that could be very interesting for the countries. In Mexico, I offer that. If you are interested in this kind of special varieties, then we have to select, we have to try, and there is no problem.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it was an excellent initiative. For me, it's been extremely fruitful. I think it was very ambitious and it combined two very important elements. And one is, I think, the exchange on how we try to promote innovation in our different countries, which in itself is very useful. The other one is the discussion on where perhaps we could cooperate more concretely in the future. And I think both aims are very important and would definitely benefit from, if this is something you would be interested in taking forward, from developing further. But I think they're two somewhat distinct but equally important aims, which I think this could provide a very important platform for.
Good. Yes, sir.
I think it was a very, very useful conference. But in thinking about the next one, there are elements that didn't really come up in this discussion that are part and parcel of creating an innovative society. And that is, for instance, the whole question of the makeup of the education, primary education, secondary education. How do you get right brain skills, for instance, into the curriculum? The whole question of the business environment didn't come up much. It may be the single most important thing that's holding up the business model type innovation. Sometimes there are many aspects that didn't come up. And therefore, I'm wondering whether we're not missing some sort of template that would not only look at all strands of innovation, not just the science and technology-driven one, but also at all the prerequisites that have to go in there. And so I see some need for a template, that sort of a checklist that would help structure the next one.
It's a good point. I think education is definitely a critical area we haven't looked at. Business, NGOs are also very important part of the ecosystem. Agree. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I found that the conference was really very, very exciting. Tremendous amount of energy, lots of sharing of knowledge, lots of goodwill. And I think that, just to throw out in there, two possibilities. One is, I think that something that would be very helpful in preparing for the next one is to structure a bit more what the next one would accomplish in terms of very clear objectives and concrete actions and results that you'll be aiming for. And in preparation for that, I have two alternatives. One is, to some extent, you already have the innovation portal here. One question is to what extent that can be used to collect ideas, and also, very importantly, now that we've discussed a lot of the topic about inclusive innovation, to have ideas and examples of how this is being carried from the first innovation to actually take it to practice, to commercialize. Because I think the how-to, and we've been discussing that among some of us here, is very important. And if that can be built in, that would be very valuable. But even more ambitious, and it depends, of course, on the people here, is might not make sense to have some kind of central secretariat or think tank, which would have members from the different countries, to the extent that they're willing to participate in this, because to keep this, it's a very dynamic area. There's a lot of information that can be culled, but it also needs to be structured and organized. And I think it needs some people working pretty intensely to really bring this to fruition. And that would actually lead to a more structured program for the next year, where there would be a very concrete set of deliverables and actions, which go all the way from involving not just NGOs and other governments, but private sector, both from India, from other worlds, to multinational companies, to international NGOs, to really be able to have good models of how to take this into concrete results. So it's just maybe something we could discuss a bit more. Thank you.
I think one concrete suggestion is that on our portal, we need a tab on global collaborations. We also need a tab on education, on NGOs, business. So, some of these topics, it'll be good to just consolidate on our portal. And maybe come back with a white paper based on this meeting and the follow-up, circulate that to everybody in maybe next 30 days or so for their input. We have a CD of all of the presentations except one for you to take home. So one presentation is missing, which we will email it to you. So before you go, just pick up a CD which summarizes all of the presentations. Okay. I assume what I'm announcing is right. Okay, but what I'm announcing is right. One is missing, 100 copies are there, everybody can get a copy. Okay. Just want to make sure that I'll say something and outside there is no CD. Okay. Anish, we were just, while you were out, we were talking about just general impressions and what should we do next and how we can build on it, what we can learn from it. What's your input?
Well, I was struck by, in each of the presentations that I attended, there are some elements that we could take action on now. So we were just chatting about Mexico. In ideal worlds, we'd have new monies that we could invest right now, but most of us are in fiscally constrained environments, which make investments harder to coordinate. But in just our own little side chat, we realized that we could work on projects either with existing programs where we do more collaborative work together, or by facilitating innovations through open data. And I am struck by the notion that if we had one or two of the key priority areas that you announced as part of the report you released today, whether it be in health or in early learning or some other area, that maybe we could say, look, let's each contribute a data set or two that we think would be relevant, and let's see if we can put our collective minds to work to see if something comes out of it, a global innovation apps showcase of sort. I don't know, but something that we could actually do while we solve for the broader legal frameworks or investment frameworks that might be possible if, you know, I love your framework around the third model of the business model innovation, your description of the kind of innovator that is taking, you know, existing stuff and making it more cost effective. This is your effort. You give it a name, business model innovation or something? That thing. We could surface more shots on goal of that thing around a common area if we each opened up one spigot to our, whether it be research that's available for reuse, whether it be government data that we're liberating, whether it be programming interfaces or other tools that are available. If we sort of put some of that into a stew, perhaps we could see if there are more business model innovators that are coming forward, because these are not that hard. We don't have to invent a new physics to go after that business model innovator. So anyway, that was my impression, but it may be too hard to do that right away, but Mexico and I are doing it for now. Australia, you in? We call this asynchronous collaboration. Each of us deposits at our own pace, and at some point there's enough raw material that could be used for some kind of challenge or contest.
What about from people on both sides, outside of the round table? You should also participate. Just because you're sitting on the side doesn't mean you can't add value. Just come closer or speak louder.
One of the things I noticed in a lot of the discussions and presentations was there's a lot of best practices that all of you collectively have sort of come together regarding, you know, clusters or regarding how to drive, you know, education. There's a lot of good learnings that have come together and they're sort of disjoint. And I thought if we could sort of collect these best practices, maybe have one or two task force of interests, just we can even just collect that information and then to share that in itself would be a really useful activity. If we can do something like that now, we can show some results soon. So it was just a suggestion.
So do you want to take on the task? No, it's one way to get it done.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah, I'd
So
be happy to. I mean, what
So
topics?
anybody who wants to join him on that task, welcome to join. I think Sylvia has something to say.
Just very briefly, I think I totally agree with you, and I think that would be very valuable. And the other thing is, I mean, we're all struggling with innovation policy in our national context, but something that can come out of this is if you could have some common conclusion, you know, just observations from this, a little more structured, a little also prepared, and you know, so we can actually discuss them concretely. I think we all would benefit from being able to take such recommendations or observations or home with us.
Samir, why don't we do a website on global knowledge, global innovation portal, or whatever website, your global innovation roundtable. At least put all this stuff on, all our existing presentations, everybody's background, everybody's picture, these are the people who came, some pictures from all our dinner, whatever you want to do. So at least we know that we have archive of this first meeting. Then start building on it. Best practices. So at least at one place you will have all this material.
Could we just do a community on the innovation portal itself? And we have space in the community for members to join in for...
True, but let's keep, the Indian portal will be too complicated. If we create a new, just the global collaboration separately, I think it may be easier. I don't know. What do you think? Because it will be too difficult to navigate in the Indian portal, global innovation roundtable issues. This is clear. I go to global innovation roundtable. I know all the colleagues who came, their background, what they said, their presentation. We start discussions with them. We can get an email address, of a different types, and then we are in link. We are connected. Rather than finding them in the India portal. What do you think?
I had just 2 points here. I think I'm taking off from Samir as well as Sylvia. One thing that happens, I've seen in many of these development portals, we have a huge listing of best practices. But I think someone needs to go through those best practices, draw out some commonalities or factors that's actually making the difference. Because when you're trying to put something on the ground to go through the best practices and kind of figure out what's going on there, it becomes a little difficult. So if someone has the energy or the enthusiasm, if they can look at those best practices and start teasing out. So that was one of them. The second thing is many interesting programs have been presented today. For informed decision-making or evidence-based, as we meet each year, can we go back and visit those specific, maybe 2 or 3 of those schemes, and see exactly how are they moving along and what are the challenges they've faced and how some of those challenges have been addressed maybe. Again, to kind of help the rest of us that are trying to get on this. And I guess the last point I would make is I would love to know the failures and why the failures, not just the best practices.
People don't like to publicize failures.
Sam?
Yes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Wiesen from UNDP. And just adding, it has been a fascinating afternoon. And I just wanted to add from the UN side and from UNDP, we have something called Solutions Exchange, which is a platform. It has depth, it's global. We have country depth, it's about 30,000 participants within India. And it's driven by the membership itself. And we put questions are raised through the network, and then we have it moderated by certain themes. So it could be a model you might want to look at. And we found that it's a very democratic, bubbling up type of process. Anyone can put out a query, and then the rest of the groups can respond to it, and then it needs to have some leadership or moderator that can then put a summary together that can then be shared with the whole.
But what kind of queries are these? Are these sort of people looking for information or really innovative kind of queries?
Well, it depends. For the network that you've established, it would be a different kind of query that would be used. In the case of Solutions Exchanges, it range from people at local level who want to have the best practice and something that they're trying to implement, to Planning Commission on the 12th plan, and they'd like to have queries and questions to a practice group on governance or a practice group on tribal affairs. So it depends. It can be tailor-made, but the most important thing is the democratic process. Once you establish the network and who's part of the network, that a democratic process that's established for anyone to be able to submit a query or question, and anyone from the team and from the community itself to respond, and then at a moderated level to look at creating a summary so that there's a constant learning process that's built in. It's just something to put out there as a possibility. We have someone who happens to be here in India right now who's working on the global exchange. May set up a meeting if you might find that useful.
Sure.
to see how it could, what learnings could be adapted.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Yes, sir.
To go back to that, but to make something like that work, I think you need to have some kind, it has to be resourced to have the moderation and the structuring, because if not, it just sort of stays there and it will just die, it will just fade out, because if there's no active response. So I think that one thing to consider is how that can be, how you can find a way to resource that so you have a staff or a group of people who manage that. It's sort of like a virtual think tank that begins to sort of put together, looks at the evidence, can also propose some research. The research can be done by different parties, but it needs to have a structured organization with some people pretty much full-time on it.
Can we look at that? Can we look at that and circulate a white paper on it to everybody? You know, and see who wants to participate and who doesn't want to. You know. But I think it's a good idea to just get this process going. Good. What else? Yes?
Sir, I have a very small point to submit. Firstly, listening the presentation, some of the, it's a great learning experience. And some of the presentation appears to be, some of the items appears to be as if we are doing work on our desk, doing something on our own. It was that kind of a common and similar items also. My point is, sir, as Anish said, data sharing. Probably we need to create a innovation 2.0 system where lots of case studies of the participating countries, data relating to innovation, as an organized exercise is accumulated and the people are able to use and utilize that data. And something similar which every government is trying to do, open the data. So let's open this innovation data among ourselves, and that could give a great learning curve to, in fact, country like us, in fact, probably to everyone, where the entire thing, which whatever we do on innovation schemes, policies, plan, case studies, outcome, including the failures, and this data is shared and is an open domain public data which people can manipulate. And if we do this innovation 2.0, it would be even bigger exercise than government 2.0.
If I may, Sam, on this, because so President Obama got 40 countries to sign this open government collaboration. We're doing a bilateral version of that with India that I'm assuming most of you were represented in that group. I don't remember exactly, but Mexico was certainly there. In our U.S. National Action Plan, we pledged to create an innovation data community. And I'm promising you we're going to get that done in months. And as an example, we are publishing all of the scientific investments that we've made at the principal investigator level to make it much more accessible. Who got what grant for what purpose and how do they relate? And so literally, you can do a knowledge cluster map and visualize that data. We just did a contest through the National Library of Medicine showcasing all of the biomedical papers that have been written on NIH funding that are stored at PubMed. I don't actually know what the global equivalent of that would be, but if each country deposited some version, it might be just a very basic platform for the purposes of helping people find research topics, not at the generic level, I do nanotechnology, but at the very specific and precise level. Here's the abstract of the paper, and then these data mining companies could come in and grab that, match people up across countries to encourage them to collaborate. I don't know, I'm making it up here. But I would imagine we could do that if each of us took our respective data sets on innovation, even if it was one. For us, it'd be an NSF or an NIH funding database with abstracts. I'm making it up. Then at least we've done something in the next 90 days that shows that at least we've deposited something for the world. I don't know if there'd be interest in that. I certainly would love to be able to do that with the group.
I think it would be interesting for us also to just put all our data on what we are doing at CSIR, what we are doing with Department of Science and Technology, so at least people know what we are working on.
Actually, our e-lekha every check issued, wherever, who has got the money, what grant, everything is open. So you can go and see the last 1 year, Department of Science and Technology has given grant to which, but what is not available, with that grant, what innovation has happened and what innovation did not happen.
That is more important.
That has to be captured.
And the process which we followed in different places, and then how do some processes are so fast, how some processes are not so fast.
Can I suggest one thing that I think the world is grappling with? Instead of trying to do all that we do in innovation, is there models of private-public partnership that has helped economic development of the lower part of the economic area? Are there examples? Can we take them? There are enormous private-public partnership models exist which are well documented, which has created wealth for a pick of the pyramid. Are there private-public partnership across the world, whether it's Mexico, France, how is it differently done, which has produced results by which wealth is distributed for a large number of people? If we can build one such portal, because the reason is, Sam, innovation every nation is doing to have its own competitive advantage. If you read the national policies of innovation, to have its own competitive advantage. How do you want a competitive advantage and still expect to collaborate? If you look at European FP7 document, the entire strategy says, how do I remain competitive with respect to United States? And for that, what I need to do with India, China? These are whole paragraphs, pages. So therefore, we have to pick up of global collaborative innovation that is global good, where everybody benefits. Everybody knows climate change could be one and like that, but therefore, one suggestion I have, the world is actually have a serious problem. Being an X Prize foundation which has announced that award, I have been a member of the advisory board. I saw there were 2 years. Sam, I can tell you, it is amazing that this prize exercise has dropped the human genome sequencing cost from billions of dollars, millions of dollars, to tens of thousands of dollars, and eventually will be less than $10,000. How has it happened? Whereas drug pharma, from $1 million clinical trial, 5 million, 10 million, now it's 800 million to $1 billion. So can we introduce a concept of e-trial? And there is a science one of my friends has written in Science, a small one-page article, as a future space. Can we look at that? Can we say what the principle of e-trial is? That the regulatory toxicology is strictly adhered to. Phase 1 clinical trial is under complete control of the government bodies to certify safety. We all know there is a huge variation in patient pool. Therefore, efficacy going through the present route is very expensive and futile. Can we use the phase 2, phase 3 on an open portal where patients, volunteers comes and clinical trial data is put up, and based on the pool of clinical trials. So if you want to now have a malaria drug, it's very expensive, you want to reduce it. So malaria drug you have got, you say, I am able to get this data publicly created by volunteering effort, and that data then actually decides the drug is efficacy or not. So this is a new concept. This will reduce, if it is successful, the cost of drug development, the way the genome sequencing cost has fallen by orders of magnitude. And one can come up with prize announcements, Global Innovation Program prize, that to make this model successful. And this will be ideal for diseases which are neglected diseases.
So what prevents us from doing it?
We can do it.
Yeah. And
But
if
we
people want
need
to
a
join
global
hands,
participation in this.
see, education and health are two main areas where real global collaboration is required to reduce costs cost of education, cost of health. Everybody can benefit from it, not just India. Because everywhere these two areas are critical and expensive. Saurabh, you want to say something?
No, I was saying that in general, if you look at innovation in these two areas and many other areas as well, what is happening is that the way people in different parts of the world are solving problems has a lot to do with the context and the circumstances and historical perspective. So they do it differently. So very often if we're solving something here, there are some approaches that do not occur to us. In another country, they may do it in a completely different way, and vice versa. So to some extent, my sense is collaboration. Increasingly in the world we live in, yes, it's a little about competition, but it's not so much about countries competing as much as companies competing. And there, most companies are actually looking to leverage innovation not only from their home base, but around the world. If you look at the number of global companies that are doing a lot of the R&D here in India, they're trying to leverage what's happening here. So I think it's already getting more collaborative than it may have been in the past. But you're right, if we focus on areas where there is absolutely uniform rationale, and again, decreasing costs in areas like health may not suit some companies, but it suits countries. And to that extent, I think focusing on those 2 or 3 areas may be much more useful for us.
I think we can add one more area because of the present food cost inflation touching everybody in the world. Is there strategies, innovations on food productivity and soil conservation, which will not affect your competitiveness, doesn't create any difficulty for another nation, we can share. The reason is, if you want to have a peaceful world, you can't have people hungry, you can't have people unhealthy, and you can't have people uneducated. And these 3 are global good.
Yeah.
So therefore,
good point.
All of us are worried about security, all sorts of conflicts. And I think this is a global forum, since you said about a global forum, of true spirit. If these 3 principles we take, we introduce innovation for 3 aspects.
Food, education, and health.
Food, education, and health. And then it touches everybody. So 7 billion people benefit, whatever we learn, wherever we learn. And it is not culture specific. Water will become very complicated economics. Ownership comes in. See, in water, water economics is going to be ownership driven. It's very complex. Economics of commons.
Next round will be water, energy, that will be next round.
Yeah.
Infrastructure.
What is your perspective? I haven't heard your presentations. Do you have a perspective on the next step?
Dr. Chand.
Me?
Yes.
Well, I haven't given much of thought to that issue, but basically I think as far as innovation is concerned, it is very difficult to find common ground for cooperation among different countries because interests. So I think the most important thing we have to do before discussing the issue is to identify the commonalities that exist between different countries so that we can use that as a nodal for cooperation.
How about you?
So I really like the idea of concrete actions. And then regarding what we have started here today and yesterday, we should start things like competitions, awards, other activities that really ask for proposals for innovation and then utilize those open data sets and other things like that. So before the next meeting in about a year, we should devise somehow a method for award or some other mechanism for really starting grassroots level activities there.
Well, If I may ask, though, we could, if the first step is on this portal that Sam's describing, whatever the roundtable.gov or whatever it is, if we each contributed a couple of data sets that we felt are in our interests, so if we want to go after low-cost healthcare devices or early learning to get kids to understand reading or something, whatever you care, whatever it is, and we just mashed up that stew with whatever we felt was contributed data, even if we had no money, because I think money is where we get all into a problem, $0. We just finished a contest with our vice president, apps against abuse, women that suffer from violence. We asked entrepreneurs and innovators if they could build a simple method for women to communicate distress in a very discreet way. We had 35 proposals, not proposals, they built prototypes, and we awarded the best prize. Zero money, just they wanted to do it because the vice president said it. If a bunch of innovation leaders from around the world said, look, each of us have our own perspectives. I might put a blurb, here's my US contribution, here are 10 data sets, and here are the problems I'd love to go out. And you said yours, you said yours. If in 90 days we assembled the equivalent of a dozen data sets with explanation and said, hey, 90 days after this, we want to celebrate and showcase, feature you on the website for the most innovative apps for the poor, or whatever you want to call the thing. I think things will start to happen. And without us knowing, you'll see professors collaborating with startups, collaborating with some government agency, the UN will get involved. We wouldn't even need to worry about formalizing it because it'll just happen. The teams will form because we called for that to happen. I don't know if you have interest in maybe contributing a couple data sets to the cause, but maybe that's how we start. Literally a link to 5 data sets that we are already making available. Don't do anything that you haven't already done. And start there. Maybe it's better than nothing.
Yes.
I'll do it. You want to do it?
Finland is in as long as there is the frugal, rural
Oh, absolutely. That's the
perspective there, and
constraint.
that's what we are missing in Europe in similar
Frugal and
cases
rural.
and in Finland and other places.
You agree with frugal and rural?
Yeah.
There's no competition in frugal and rural. We all need that. So Finland is in. We're in. Do you have any data sets you could contribute to help with frugal and rural? You'll look. You'll look. But you're going to feel pressure when we all contribute. You're the last guy out. Sylvia, you're in? How about you guys? Mexico's in. You already said yes. How about you?
Yeah, that's a good way to start.
Yes, I think we've got a lot of supply side ideas contributing all the research dollars and all the rest of it, and it's around the demand side, and part of that is what are some of the issues? Some of those challenges, either grand challenges or small challenges, and seeing those across the globe would be very good because there'll be new ideas for addressing those sorts of things. And I think the
How would you feel about the Millennium Development Goals as a starting point?
Yeah.
Aren't those pretty well known?
Yeah.
But what has happened to that, really?
Well,
it's been around for a while.
The action is a different question,
Yeah.
but the goals themselves they define the problem pretty well, do they not?
Yeah. So seeing those problems, and maybe through different country experiences, being able to make them finer grained, make them more of a sort of a bite-sized challenge rather than being totally grand and too difficult to achieve.
Yep.
And I think the other area is around creating the entrepreneurs who can take technology to market and understanding the requirements of the users and the markets. And these are different markets, and that's not competitive in the sense, because there are going to be different markets in different parts of the world. But certainly in India, the need to develop those skills is very high, and I think that you just need to go and do it. So if you can identify a problem and you can find a technology that will address it, go and do it.
See, on the first day, there were 2 good ideas which I thought probably worth mentioning now. One is this whole idea of lowering health cost that Dr. Devi Shetty talked about. And the other one was Dr. Samir Bhambrachari talking about open drug discovery, open source drug discovery. Can we take these 2 ideas, for example, and build on it? Because These are universal ideas. How do we collaborate on these two ideas? Everybody would agree that we need to reduce health costs. Everybody would agree that we need to reduce cost of the drug discovery. Concrete. But I don't know how you
in the
pull all
case-
this together.
In the case of neglected disease, yes.
Yes.
That'd be very.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm very happy.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are global. We have 130 countries.
No, but how do we get other
Now
people?
leadership coming.
Yeah.
See, now the individuals are there. What you are trying to say, individual capacity people are there. I
Right.
have from Berkeley, I have from this, I have from George Whiteside, I have
Right.
everybody.
But not as a
But not as a
national
leadership
Right,
problem.
right, exactly.
So this becomes a leadership point of view, endorsement takes place. Then this forum takes the initiative and say we expand on this. And my friend is from USA who is talking about this e-clinical. I was very surprised that science accepted this paper. So, because we can't afford it anymore. Are we ready that not to have a cheap cancer drug? Less than $30,000 treatment? We are not accepted. We cannot accept it. But there is no solution with the present mechanism. We got jacked ourselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Chairman, I wanted to point out one area which is very important when it comes to the innovation. The capacity building for the innovation itself is a very important aspect that in some way we should address. And the international collaboration
Workshop and training.
can really help. Particularly in health area, I don't think we have really exploited the ICT potential to provide the access to health services. I have seen some of the services relating to telemedicine. They are doing enormous good for some of the tribal areas. And if we can really exploit the technology very well to close the bridge between the availability of experts to the need of services in rural areas through use of ICT, I think it will be a great innovation for countries like India and elsewhere also. This is something I think we should give importance. On the other side, of course, we need to have metadata about the innovation. There are two aspects. We talked mostly about the enablers, enabling environment, ecosystems, and so on. But the content is also important. Very good case studies, learning experiences of innovations that should form the other part of the thing. And we don't have a metadata to go search and find. There are a lot of youth who are interested to start something, but they don't have models. They don't know the procedures. So if we can put this information into the network and if it is accessible, I think it will be a very great contribution to promote innovations.
See, given a choice, if somebody was to ask me today, what's the most important thing on your agenda? I would say, I would like to train 1,000 innovation advisors in India. Some in universities, some in R&D labs, some at clusters. People who are systematically trained to understand innovation, intellectual property, ecosystem, venture capital, marketing, business development, and then they in turn become catalyst to promote innovations. We don't have people like that. And if they are there, they are busy making money of their own. They have no interest in helping anybody.
Can GIR, your global roundtable innovation, can take this as one agenda?
That would be a good
because
thing to do.
It's global experience. I'm sure Israel has so many surplus of such people, and they have only 6 million people. So some of them can come and
they may be
teach.
busy making money, which is okay, which is nothing wrong with
Okay,
it.
but once in a while, 10% of the time of those people we can use. I'm sure Shamir Mitra was making money in California.
Yeah, but I
It is
forced him.
your initiative you brought
I forced him. I said,
and all
Shamir-
of us are learning from it.
Yeah, but we need 1,000 of these.
That's right.
5, 10 don't help.
So can we create a global innovation advisors collection
and also
for
train them.
train them, and
Train them, provide tool them,
And
give them
that
right
creates-
tool kits and all.
and that creates a future McKinsey of the bottom of the, for the bottom of the pyramid.
Yes.
To remove poverty of the world. A new world. Today you say it's a new world, right?
Yeah,
so we create a McKinsey. This forum creates a McKinsey of 1,000 trained advisors who will make sure the affordability, accessibility is all.
Yeah, we should look at this. It's something seriously we should think of. Yes, sir.
What I would like to also bring in is kind of combine certain things to do things at the same time. If you really have visible innovation projects, and that not only from the technology side, but also with the design side and the involvement of the users is arranged properly, that can also be very much a learning experience for young people, for professionals, for stakeholders. So actually I would like to go into the field at some point to create these experiences and to learn from it, all of us. And I think if we do that properly, then you get things moving more than only studying very interesting documents. We need to do that, but I also want to go into the real world.
Good. Anything from back out there? Last row? Those who are taking nap? Yes, sir.
I think one of the intriguing ideas that might be a low-hanging fruit, so to speak, is the idea of creating some kind of a joint platform with a call for awards using existing things. So in other words, if a government like India and US is making a call anyway, and or India is making a call for technologies for low-cost diagnostics or something, to invite other roundtable members before posting, do you want to link to this call? Do you want to be involved in some way? So that then it becomes multinational. Now I realize there may be legal or other impediments, but the idea of publicizing each other's calls for innovations at the bottom of the pyramid might be a way to attract greater interest and better quality proposals without taking extra money.
Good idea. A lot of good ideas. I hope, once again, somebody is documenting from our group. Good idea. It looks like there's work cut out for all of us. I thought our team thought that they'll take rest for a while.
I would say one thing. I think this whole concept of focusing on some global innovations that we can all collectively work on, like food, health, education, it's sort of like a theme for this group, that we're going to be focused on global innovations, not just, country or regional or local, but there's a few areas that globally we would like to collectively attack and drive the call to action or competitions or whatever these various ideas we had. But I think if we have a theme associated with this, it will help sort of direct.
But this really ties into the bottom of the pyramid
It does tie
need.
into the bottom of the pyramid.
These three things are
Absolutely.
fundamentals.
Yeah, but I think if we can spend 1 year maybe, driving towards that and trying to see some results in the next meeting, I think that would just be something to help us focus energies.
How many of you guys have solicitations going out soon on some kind of call for ideas on bottom of the pyramid ideas? We do. We have grant programs and R&D programs coming out for sure. So, I mean, just to give you an example, the US-India Endowment Fund put out a single call. The rule was you had to have a researcher in the US and in India. It wasn't restricted to academics. You could have startups and businesses participate. We had 380 responses for very small dollars. We haven't announced the winners yet, but I mean, this didn't require a lot of money. It'd be interesting to say in that point if it's requirement to be at least 3 countries out of the roundtable collaborate. That's the team. And people call each other, cold call them for the first time. Hey, I heard you're working on this. Do you want to participate? I mean, who knows what'll happen. But it seems to me that if we, again, in the open data stuff, if we each posted when we were going to do our next solicitation, it shouldn't be that hard to figure out. We got 5 of them coming out. Ours might offer a $500,000 winner. You might offer, whatever. We get 4 or 5 of them. Any one of the 3 themes that Sam just outlined would fit, I'm sure, a good number of them. That's it. Then we just say, hey, by the way, extra points if you do this with other, you know, at least 2 countries.
Good idea.
I don't know, making it up, simple. Our next one's going to come out probably in January, right, Mark? Yeah. All right, so the U.S. pledges that for the January call for the U.S.-India Endowment Fund, we will suggest to our friends in India that we add a third-party country discussion. If anybody else wants to join, we're going to go in January, I think.
Good.
How about you guys in the back? You're professors.
You mean your professors, you don't have money? Is that what you're saying?
Well, they don't sponsor the competitions, but we got to get you in some form or fashion. Definitely, you guys. You must do solicitations all the time.
Yeah, but you see, a lot of this stuff is going on. My problem is, how do you separate signal from noise?
Correct.
Lot of noise in the system. See, one thing that internet and media has done is increase the noise level. So everybody's doing everything all the time and nothing much is coming out. You know, so it's the whole business of doing a lot to get less. And we want to do exactly opposite. We want to do less and get lot. How do we do that?
Define metadata.
Huh?
Define metadata for innovation. The moment this definition comes, then we know what is good and
No,
what
it's
is
not just metadata. Maybe it's just a list of activities saying,
correct.
you know, just zero in. For example, if I had an option, I would say, can you create a framework where per year tuition cost is $100 a year and you get the same quality education?
That
Plus or minus
structure
25%. I mean, that's a clear idea. Now you tell me how to do it.
That's it.
Okay.
Same way,
like, you know.
You're absolutely right. Because you look at disease, polio and smallpox were removed with the world's commitment focused.
Yeah.
Why can't we take that and say we will remove tuberculosis with that world commitment focus? Because we know XDR, MDR is going to affect everybody. Somebody in Mexico having tuberculosis and not treated well will cost American XDR. Somebody sitting in China or India not getting the right spurious, not treating well, will have an effect in Europe. So therefore, the cost of treating a patient in India may be 1,000th, but once it becomes XDR, you will spend $500,000, $100,000. So $10 treatment we could not do correctly. So therefore, can we say, we'll do everything innovative required. And I can give a simple example I didn't mention yesterday. We realized India, in Delhi city, the largest tuberculosis generation is done by rickshaw pullers. 80,000 rickshaw pullers, of which 20-25% gets tuberculosis in the 4th year.
Wow.
They only transmit school children primarily in the afternoon, very large number of them. So in an average, 100,000 school children get tuberculosis affected. So rickshaw has to be replaced. You cannot replace with fuel. If you replace all rickshaws in India in fuel, we need $12 billion additional petrol import. So that's not possible. So therefore, can we use electrical charge